In this video, we're going to be making some needle felted pendants. So let's get started. Okay. All right, you guys, we're trying a different setup today because I really want to make sure I'm not covering up the work with my head. So I've raised it all up so that hopefully I don't lean over top of it, because when it's really low, it's so easy to want to work like this and then you can't see anything. So what are we doing today? I really wanted to try these little pendant, what are they even called? Trays, I think is what they're called, like pendant trays that you can put things inside of. So you can see that there's a little bit of a lip here, so there's room for some thickness. And I thought it would be fun, and I've seen it, you know, on Pinterest and things like that, trying to do some needle felt necklaces. I'm trying to decide which one we should start with. I think I'm gonna go with my simplest idea first, which is going to be a little mushroom on a green background. So I'm gonna grab my needle felting tools, which are just these two things. And this time, I don't know that I've done a needle felting project where I'm not really needle felting on top of the weaving, or at least not many of them. So, but that's what we're gonna be doing today. Now, I also have this little handy circle template that I've had for years, and the smallest one is about the same size as my little tray. So I can kind of use this as a guide for how big it needs to be, and then it'll have to end up a little bit smaller than that, which is fine. So we're just gonna start and we're gonna see where this takes us. So right now I'm just grabbing a chunk of this green, and I just wanna make sure that this is the green I want, and I don't want a darker green. And I mean, I could mix the greens as well, so that it's a little bit more interesting in the background. Maybe we'll do that. So I'm gonna grab a tuft of the green, the not as dark green, and a tuft of this. And it's gonna be kind of hard to judge how big this is. My other thought is, something that just popped in my head is the reality that I could purposely make this bigger and then actually cut it down in the end, but it might make the edges not look as nice. So what I might do first is, I have these two colors, and I might just go ahead and just start mixing them by pulling. It's like kind of shuffling. It might just be nice to have something that isn't so flat colored. Now, something I do need to consider is not making it too thick, because those trays really aren't that deep. They're maybe an 1/8 of an inch, I would guess. And one could totally needle felt on top of like a piece of fabric or a piece of felt or something to do something similar to this. But my concern with that was just making sure that whatever that was would be completely covered up in the end, because that would be the last thing you want, is sort of the edges to be poking through and it not looking as nice once it's in the tray. So I've just kind of gotten a tuft of wool, and now I'm needle felting everything towards the center. And to be clear, I haven't really had like necessarily formal needle felting training. I think we did a little bit of it when I was in college, but we didn't do a whole lot. So I'm always just sort of doing what seems logical to me. So I can kind of keep bringing back in this little circle to see where I'm at. And what I can do is, while the felt isn't very hard, so there's a thing called soft felt and hard felt, and that's basically just how much something has been felted. What you'll notice is the more you felt something, the more physically hard it gets, because you're just really knotting together those fibers really, really tightly. So that's what that is. So while this is more of a soft felt, I could definitely cut it down. That being said, I'm always a little nervous to do that because we just don't know for sure how much this will shrink, if that makes sense. So I'm gonna just keep felting it until I feel like it's together enough, and then I'm going to do my mushroom. Did I say I was gonna do a mushroom? I'm gonna do a mushroom on top of this. So you'll notice that I'm gonna felt it into the pad, and I'm gonna keep peeling it up, flipping it over. I'm needle felting from both sides, and That's just so that it doesn't get more permanently felted into my felting pad. I'm needle felting from both sides just so that I'm making sure it's like thoroughly felted, and eventually I'll just switch to going on one side. Right now it's looking really funny and definitely not like the circle that it's meant to be. From what I can see on the monitor back here, it looks like this has become one with the felting pad, but I promise it hasn't. Here's what it looks like when it's detached. So I'm gonna keep checking back with my, well, I could even use one of the trays. Maybe that would be smart. So you can see I've got quite a ways to go in terms of how much smaller it could be. So what I might wanna do is start kind of angling in my felting needle to kind of push everything a little bit smaller. So now I'm trying to start being a little bit more precise, and I'm very sorry that this color is just not showing up on this felting pad very well, but you can see that now I'm trying to be a little bit more precise and get the edges of my little circle smoother. We're getting close to being the right size here. I might have to do a little bit of trimming. Okay, now I'm standing because I'm finding that having my arm up so high is not great. And yeah, it's unlikely that I will get my head in your way. So you can see how it's gonna fit in there. I really like this mixed green that I kind of made by hand, and how nicely it looks with this sort of brassy, kind of an aged bronze brass kind of color. Now I don't want to over felt it, just in case it starts to shrink a little bit once I actually start doing the mushrooms. So I might leave it there, question mark. It's pretty close. So I think that is plenty close enough. And what I can do right before I'm actually going to glue it into the tray is I can just kind of trim off any of the fuzzies on the edges at that point. But I'm leery of making it any smaller at this point, because once I start needle felting again more in the center, it is going to get a little bit smaller. Next up, we need to start our little mushroom. And I have this really bright red, which is kind of perfect for mushrooms. If you haven't seen already, I have a needle felting on a sweater video where I did a bunch of mushrooms, and I really love the way that it turned out. And I even did a little bit of wet felting in that one. So if you're interested in that, you can check that out. So I'm just kind of trying to gather up some of this wool. And then what I'm going to do is start in the center of my little tuft. And I know that it looks a little bit wild right now, but it won't in the end. I like to start in the middle because naturally the wool wants to kind of, well, it's going to shrink up. So that's why I'm starting in the middle, to make sure that there's enough in the middle. Plus it helps bring in all those edges. And I'm still going to be lifting up this little piece every once in a while so that it doesn't get too stuck to my needle felting pad. That's quite thick. This red that I added was quite a lot. But I don't think that's a bad thing necessarily, because it's gonna look a little bit more 3D this way. So I'm gonna just roll with it. Now, before I needle felt this bottom area of the mushroom down too much, I just realized I'll probably wanna put the stem on, because I like it when the stem kind of looks like it's kind of underneath the top, because in real life, that's how it would be, right? The top would be coming over top of the stem. Now I have a little bit of this off-white, so this is like a really light beige color, And I think much like with the greens, I would like to mix this off-white with some white. And basically the reason I'm trying to do, or I would like to do that, is just so that it's not as stark. Sometimes I find, even though it's a natural white, it's not a true white, I find that it can look really stark. And anytime we can mix just a little bit of something slightly darker, I just find it looks so much better. It's a little bit more like painting, right? Where you're not gonna have maybe even watercolor painting or something like that, where you're gonna kind of mix colors together. So it's not just one really flat color. Though that is what we have going on the mushroom. Maybe I should have mixed that one too. It's hard to know the amount. I haven't really needle felted on, well, I guess I've done these mushrooms before, but I don't remember what the right amount is for like the stem and how much it really shrinks. But I think this will be okay. I can always pull some off if necessary. Once again, I just like to put the tuft on there and needle felt in the center. And we kind of just attempt to tame the chaos from there. So I'm double checking that I'm not making it too small again. And so far, it's still good. Oh my goodness, this is gonna be so cute. I'm actually really glad I made the top a little bit thick because I do think it's going to add to making it look a little bit more three-dimensional. So what I like to do, and maybe I don't mention it enough, but I'll mention it here. When I'm trying to get the edges of the wool in a particular direction, I just kind of angle my needle to do that. So for instance, I wanted this stem to come a little lower, so I'm kind of pushing the wool out towards where I want that line to be. So now it's a little bit better. And then up here, I'd actually like the wool to go in. So I'm gonna push it in toward where I want it to go. The most important thing is just that you always have to keep in mind that the direction that you put your needle in is the same direction that you come out, because these are such fine steel. They're very thin, and so they can break really easily. So you want to be really mindful of not attempting to bend them at all, because that's when the tips will snap off and they love to just go flying off into the abyss, and it's very hard to find them. So I kind of have my basic mushroom shape now. So I definitely want to add in some little polka dot things on the top of this so that it looks all the more mushroom-like. Now I need to decide if I want to mix the white. Yeah, I'm gonna mix more of the white with the beige because I really love that ever so slightly softer look. Oh, I did still have some. So I have all of my little dots on my mushroom now, and all I'm doing now is just going in and trying to finesse all the little details. So making sure that my edges are pretty straight. I mean, it's a mushroom. It doesn't by any means need to be perfect, but I'm also just trying to make sure that I feel like I've felted it enough that nothing's going to want to come apart. But I'm being so careful because with these very tiny projects, it's really easy if you just start kind of willy-nilly felting everywhere to mess up all those lines that I have spent so much time trying to get. Oh my gosh, that's looking adorable. I love it. Okay, let's see if I can get some of these little tufts in here. I'm gonna try really hard not to felt my fingers. But I'm basically just going along the edge now, seeing if I can tuck in any of those fibers. But honestly, I think it's gonna be better to just, at this point, I'm gonna just cut all these, you can see all the little tufts. I'm going to cut around them. That's what I'm trying to say. Okay. So just very carefully, I'm not actually cutting the main piece. I'm basically just cutting the little hairs that are sticking out beyond it. I think starting with a mushroom was a good idea because after I finished the mushroom, I moved on to this little landscape piece. And can we talk about how felting or weaving any sort of abstract landscape is actually challenging on a good day, on a big scale, but then trying to needle felt on such a teeny tiny scale like this one, I spent so much time. I think the mushroom took me around a little over an hour, which is not a small amount of time, but the landscape took so much longer, probably about an hour and a half, just because I didn't know if it was enough. I didn't want to make any of the lines too obvious, but I also didn't want them to be so abstract that you didn't know what you were looking at. So that made it really tricky. I added some little trees, I added some shadows, and then some highlights, and then some more shadows, and then some more highlights. And it was honestly just really challenging, and I think that this is yet another one of those things that just requires practice and sort of an observational eye to sort of figure out how you can get that small scale in such a tiny area. It was hard. I'm not going to lie to you. But in the end, I am happy with how it turned out. I do think it looks like a landscape. And so I decided to just stop and let it be what it was and know that I can always make more later. But this does look like a landscape, so I'm happy with it. Lastly, I wanted to do just a simple flower. So first I started with this really beautiful brown color. I think it's called chocolate, but it has a bit of a burgundy feel to it. And so I first just started with that, needle felting it into just a circle, just so I had like a plain color base similar to the mushroom. And then I started adding a flower. And at first, I don't know what I was doing. I just kind of put a blob of wool on there and it didn't really look like anything. And so I pulled that off and I decided that I was gonna have to actually needle felt each individual petal so that it looked more obviously like a flower. And that worked so much better. I love this color combination. I added a pink center, a dark green stem with lighter green leaves. And this one again is so simple, but it kind of reminded me of something vintage and embroidery. I don't know if you remember ever seeing a brooch. I feel like this dark burgundy color is giving me that kind of feeling where it would be sort of like a little embroidered brooch or something like that. So I really love the color palette for this one. It was really simple and I'm happy with that. Then I started with the gluing. I turned on my hot glue gun and let it get really, really hot. Then I just glued them all in. I used quite a lot of glue and then just used that crochet hook to push down those edges, making sure that they were really seated in there tightly and nicely and they weren't just gonna pop out afterward. Next up, I have the chain. I ended up doing a couple different lengths of necklaces. I don't know why, I just decided I wanted to. So I did 20 inches for the mushroom and the flower, and then I did 22 inches for the landscape. And then I just used some jump rings, added the clasps, your basic jewelry making kind of things. And Bob's your uncle, these are done. All right, you guys, I actually have 3 things to show you this time. So we need to do 3 different reveals. So first up, we have the mushroom necklace. Oh my gosh, look how cute that is. Next up, we have the landscape necklace. And last but not least, we have the flower necklace. I'm trying to cover my face so you can see it. I think these are so cute. It's such a fun way to use a fiber art like needle felting to make some jewelry. And if you enjoyed this video, check out this one next.